Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Small Talks with Owen. Today will be podcast number 2. We'll be talking about the interviewing process, choosing your career, benefits to think about when taking a job, cost of living, and negotiation. So we'll start off with introduction. For those who aren't familiar with us or familiar with me, the host, my name is Owen Wynn. I'm a fourth year student at the University of Georgia, and I have a special guest, the same guest for podcast number 1, Angel Olvera. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Angel Olvera. I'm a fourth year at UGA as well, and I'm studying avian biology.
Yeah, so last week we are talking about success, getting career ready, some of the steps you can take that would help you build your personal brand, networking, and stuff like that. Today we're going the same direction, but towards about interviewing resources, and topics that are related to that. So first off, we'll start where we left off the last podcast. We left off with career fairs. So let's talk about the career fair and the elevator speech. I know a lot of people are kind of fearful or kind of scared when they hear the words elevator speech. It can be daunting, but an elevator speech is kind of a small pitch you give to employers that kind of highlight who you are, why you're interested in said company, and why you'd be a great fit. And it should be short enough so that the listener doesn't lose interest. And it's called elevator speech because it should start when you walk into the elevator and end right when you walk out. So that's about 15 to 30 seconds. In some cases a little longer, but it should be around that time range. But Angel, do you have an elevator speech?
Well, I do, but I don't. So I'm in a speech class right now that I'm doing, and we did have to compose an elevator speech. So it was for an employer, a graduate program, anything like that you're trying to pursue, and I had to do mine I did mine for the vet school, and kind of it was an experience.
Yeah, it's definitely quite the experience. I know for me, my experience with elevator speech was I've had one, or I've developed my first one ever since the beginning of college, and have worked on it ever since. And I always deliver it to almost every single recruiter I've met, at the career fair, at informational meetings, events like that. I always deliver one. And it's just a really helpful way to introduce myself and to get my point across, especially at the career fair. Mine, I can share it for those who are interested. But definitely, everyone's elevator speech is unique. It's unique to their personal experience and kind of unique to their language and how they want to express themselves. I'm not going to recite it word for word per se, but I'll give you guys some highlights of what my elevator speech is like. So first, I start off with hi, my name is Owen. I'm a fourth year student, majoring in management information systems. Currently looking for internship or full time or whatever you're looking for, positions at technology driven companies like said company whoever I'm talking to. And you can cater to this if you specifically want to talk about certain domains of that company. I think that's a plus, because that really shows that you care about the company. Moving on from that, to talk about my experiences. I'm currently a research and development intern at Partner Software, and have been for the last 6 months. I'll be working there all the way up to graduation, so that's a lot of time to gain experience on campus. I am a part of UGA's Vietnamese Student Association. I'm the logistics director for their culture show. Through my experience thus far, with my internship and campus involvement, I believe I've developed some of the necessary skills to succeed at said company. I know you guys are looking for the specific position, and I wanted to know some insight into this position and what you have to say. So that's kind of how my pitch is formulated. Obviously, it's not word for word, but that's just kind of the idea. So if that helps anybody, that's very great. I know my pitch can be improved on. I think there's always room for improvement when making an elevator speech. But that's mine. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And anybody who is more experienced in that, go ahead and comment any tips or any advice you have for me for my pitch. I'll definitely take anything I can get. So let's talk about the interview process. So, after giving that pitch, and if all goes well, they love you, they love what you stand for, they can tell you're interested. You apply online, or you get invited to their informational meeting after the career fair, and you secure an interview. So let's talk about our experience with the interview process. So Angel, do you have any experience you would like to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So actually one of my one of my most memorable experiences with the interview process, as I said before, I work at the vet teaching hospital, and for my first interview with them, I had 3 individuals sitting around me, which was kind of intimidating, but I was able to adapt. It wasn't anything that I wasn't able to kind of overcome, but it was a good experience. I think it went well because I got the job. But before that, I didn't have too much experience. Just obviously like high school. I think prepped me up pretty well for it.
Yeah, that's great. With my interview experience, let's say I've had a lot. Just the past 2.5 years of interviewing for internship positions and full-time positions. I've gathered a lot of experience, and I have a lot of advice to share. I guess I remember my very first interview for an internship was in my 3rd year, and first I interviewed on campus, and it was really, it was a behavioral interview where they ask you questions about who you are and they're just there to test to see if your personality and your values align with the company's, and it went well. I was invited to an in-person interview at the company office in Atlanta, and that was the first time I was ever invited to an office at an Atlanta company, and it was absolutely beautiful, and it really gave me kind of perspective and vision into where I wanted to work, and what my lifestyle would be, especially after graduation. That was super cool. But in terms of the actual interview, there are some questions that can stump you, make you lose track of your thinking, and really test how you view certain situations. And I think that's like the goal of a lot of interviewers, is to do that. And so are there some questions that stumped you in your interview, Angel, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, one question that they tried to stump me with was, so we work a lot with client care as a receptionist, and so I think one of the questions that they asked me was like, okay, what's an experience where you had a problem with a customer or something like that, and how did you deal with it? So I think that was pretty typical question, but I can see how it can kind of stump someone, because on the spot you have to think of an experience, but I gave them a pretty good answer, and something that I was really familiar with, as far as I had a manager position at a fast food restaurant, and it was pretty easy to come up with the experience an answer that they wanted.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was actually gonna say a very similar question to that, about what question stumps you in an interview. Another question that kind of I had trouble with thinking about of an answer on the spot was the same interview I had for my first internship, or internship opportunity. Was like, what was like a mistake you made while you were in college, and how have you grown from that? For some reason, I really could not think of anything. I asked, and I think this is a tip, if you're stumped that first 10-15 seconds after they ask you a question, you can ask, oh, can I get a time to think about that question for a bit? And that's what I did. And honestly, I gave a pretty generic answer because I just ran out of, or like I just couldn't think of a time that I made a mistake and I'd grown from it. But I think that's just an example of how, like, you know, they're testing you to see if you're on your toes, and if you can generate a logical answer, and see if you can kind of highlight how you've grown from that mistake you made. And a lot of questions are, I think, worded like that, in my opinion, to see, you know, what steps you've taken, and then how you've learned from it. I think is the common goal of a lot of these interview questions. And I think another interview questions that I would like to talk about is the "tell me about yourself" question. It's always the first question, but sometimes it's, if you're unprepared, it can be really hard to like formulate your experiences, you know, in a few sentences, because, you know, your life, I'm sure, can be described in so many ways, but you have to figure out how to describe it in those few sentences that can make you the most marketable to your interviewer. Did you ever have any problems with that question, the "tell me about yourself" question, Angel?
I sort of did, but I've kind of, you know, like you said, it's asked a lot. So at this point, I, you know, am able to answer that in a, again, like you said, kind of stick out kind of way. So, you know, like you said, it's been asked a lot, but, you know,
Yeah.
You'll eventually know how to answer that.
Yeah, like I said, like if you're unprepared, it can be very hard, but I think with practice and knowing yourself, understanding your skills and how all your personal experiences tie with that, is really helpful in answering those questions. So now let's talk about kind of like how you feel when you're in an interview. With me, I've been in a few interviews, and it can be intense sometimes, especially when your interviewer can be kind of you know, antagonizing, not necessarily purposely, not necessarily like that's who they are, but more like they can be intimidating, to test, you know, how you are under pressure. Have you ever had experience with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but I mean, like, more for me, it's obviously it's gonna be like nerve wracking in the beginning, but it's sort of like a performance once you get into it. You know, there's another human on the other side. Just it starts to calm you down, and you get better at it. Especially like you said, you have a lot of experience, so
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah, but I remember my first few times, I was actually at like a kind of like a screening to see if you can get an interview with a company at the career fair, and um, they asked me some questions that I had no idea the answer to, and this is when I was very inexperienced, and I'll be quite honest, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do with that company, so it was very intense experience. The recruiter was I think it was kind of hard on me, but then at the same time, I think I've grown a lot from that experience, because it really pushed me to do more research in what I wanted to do, more research about the company I was talking to, just really pushed me to be prepared, and I think that's just very important for the interview process overall. Yeah, anything else to add before we go on to the next topic?
No, not at the moment.
All right. So after interviewing, you know, you shake hands or say goodbye over Zoom. If you interview, and comes the post interview. I think it's a very underrated part of the interviewing process, and I think a lot of people should follow up with their interviewer. A lot of career specialists, especially people at the career center, and other people, like professors and whatnot, they encourage you to follow up with your interviewer. Show them that, you know, you care, and that you appreciated their time, and that you really want to work for their company. So some things you can do is like write a thank you email. I've written a lot of thank you emails for my interviewers, and even for some of my networking events, I write them thank yous. You know, thank you for your time, thank you for interviewing me. I had a pleasure of talking about this, and this. There are tons of templates online. I'm not sure the UGA Career Center has a template, but I think they do. I just haven't done research into that. But yeah, there are templates about how you should write a thank you email to your interviewers, um, and I think it's just a great way to kind of establish a contact, just in case you have follow up questions. Like a lot of I think with my experience, a lot of interviewers for like internships and post graduation opportunities always give like a 2 week deadline, I guess, when they would reach out to you about whether you're accepted or rejected. And sometimes they can be late in providing you with that feedback. And I've had that experience before too. But I follow up with questions, try to be as transparent as possible. Say, oh hey, my name is Owen. I interviewed for this position 3-4 weeks ago. I was wondering if there have been any progress made on my application. Just questions like that. I think you can ask your interviewer. And then another tip is to continue applying even after your interview. Even if you feel like you aced your interview, I think it's just important that you keep applying, just so that, because nothing is concrete until you sign the offer letter. I think I was kind of guilty of this. My third year, applying for internships, I felt like I aced in one of my interviews, and unfortunately, I was declined for that position. And I kind of, after I finished the interview process, and when I thought I aced it, I kind of slacked off on applying for additional opportunities. So yeah, definitely continue applying until that concrete offer letter is signed and accepted. Have you ever done any of these, Angel, for the post-interview process?
So I mean, I haven't really done. I mean, since high school, I know that it's our mentors always say that this is really important, and again, it makes you stand out from, like you said, it's underrated. So definitely helps with kind of, again, like making sure those employers understand that you care and everything. But usually with my internships, I've just done an application. Actually, when I was trying to find a job before I got my job as a receptionist at the vet teaching hospital, I would send my applications out, my resume, and even if I didn't get a call back, I would, like you said, follow up with questions, anything like that. So, yeah, definitely important.
Yeah. I think I can't stress that enough. Yeah, like you said, just making yourself stand out, I think helps a lot. Even if it just increases that percentage you're getting accepted for the job, increases by a single digit. I think that's a chance a lot of people are willing to take. So on to some interview resources. So preparing for your interview. So some UGA resources that I've learned in my lecture that you can take advantage of is the Arch Ready certificate, the Handshake platform, mock interviews with consultants, big interview, professional clothing closet, career center, Pinterest board. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Arch Ready certificate. I actually had that certificate and I was certified, I think, a year and a half ago. But it's like a professionalism certificate, kind of teaches you, very similar to this podcast, honestly, and this course. You learn about interviewing, you learn about salary negotiation, you learn about networking, career planning, and things like that. But I think that's an awesome resource to have, or awesome certification to have on your resume, the Handshake platform. I talked about this the last podcast, but this is basically UGA's job board. You can search for jobs, find employers, find what positions they're open for, events. You can message recruiters on there too. I don't think the messaging feature is as utilized as people may think it is. But yeah, that's the UGA job board, and every UGA student has access to that. So if you did not know that, you should get on that whenever you can. Mock interviews with consultants. So I actually did a mock I didn't do a mock interview with consultants, but I did have an interview for a consulting position. So those are helpful. I did mock interviews with me and my own friends that were also interviewing, but I know that resource is very, very helpful. for case studies and whatnot. Big Interview, I think this is an online platform where you can log on, and same thing, just mock interviews, but through a digital platform. There's the Professional Clothing Closet, where you can get the necessary attire for your interviews and whatnot, like suits, blazers, stuff like that. There's the Career Center Pinterest board. I think this is a really creative. Board where you can see kind of the outfits you need to wear to your interview. Give you some ideas just visually. So, Angel, are there any of these resources that you think that you will find useful or find useful for others?
So Arch Ready, that sounds interesting. And I mean, do you have that on your resume? Do you think that's...
Yeah, I actually do have it on my resume. It's under my certificate kind of heading. But I'll be honest, not a lot of recruiters ask about it. Sometimes I do talk about it, but not too many people ask for it. But I still think it's a useful thing to have. Another asset you can have on your resume. And not only that, the process of getting it is very similar to this course and listening to this podcast, just teaching you kind of the ins and outs of career success and whatnot. So yeah.
Nice. And I guess mock interviews as well. I mean, I wasn't one to have problems with, or like not problems, but nervousness. Too much nervousness going into an interview. But if you find yourself that's you, then that'd probably be a good resource.
Yeah, I didn't use UGA's mock interviews resources. I did mock interviews with some Deloitte employees when I got my full-time job, and those were super helpful. Just kind of replicating that interview process really helps a lot. So other than the resources I just listed, I just want to provide kind of my own tips and advice in the afternoon, Joe. If you have any, you can chime in or add some whenever I'm done speaking. But I think one thing that really helps for preparing for your interview is to network with professionals who hold the position that you're applying for. So it'll help if you have these contacts already from previous networking events, or you can go on LinkedIn. Last podcast I talked about going on LinkedIn, going to the company you're interviewing for, and then looking for people from UGA who have graduated and are working at a certain company, and reaching out to them and saying, I have an interview coming up, could you help me out, run through some, if it's a case study or a case interview, can you run through this case study with me, just stuff like that. Just network with professionals to help you with the interview process, and they don't even have to directly help you do mock interviews. You can just ask them questions about their role and how their skills align with that role, and that just gives you a better idea of what's expected from that role and how you can formulate your own experiences to match that. And then do research the interview process for that company. An awesome website I used is Glassdoor. So for every company, they have reviews on the salary, reviews on the interview process. I'd recommend going to the interview or kind of the feedback on the interviews. A lot of people post how the interview process is, how difficult it is, what kind of interview they have, either it be behavioral or a case interview. Sometimes interviewees actually post specific questions on that platform. They're not always asked. In my experience before interviewing, I use Glassdoor, but not every question posted there is asked in the interview. There have been occasions where I saw the question on Glassdoor before it being asked to me in the interview, so that's also very, very helpful. And then it just helps you find the category of questions that would be asked. And for companies like Deloitte, sorry about talking about Deloitte a lot, but this is just my personal experience. They had their case interviews outlined actually on their website, and you could digitally do them. Like, they would ask you questions, and you would type in a little box of what your answer would be, and then they would provide you the answer they were expecting. And that really helped because all case interviews are the same across all consulting companies. So just exploring that company specific interview structure really helped me out a lot, and obviously it paid off because they're going to be my future employers after graduation. um, and then last tip, again, if you're pursuing a career in consulting and have a case interview, a great book to have is Case in Point. It's a very great book that will help you fully prepare for your case interview. And I know a lot of people use this book to prepare themselves. And again, I have links and all of that in the description for people to use if they're interested. So any advice, Angel, you have?
I think, talking to people and asking about their experiences, I think that, kind of is a good way to prep you as well. You like we talked about earlier, we have given some examples of questions they ask and things like that. So you can definitely get that from other people's experiences. So I think that could be a good way to approach it as well.
Yeah, just building that knowledge and keep building it through all your experiences, I think really helps you kind of mold yourself into that, kind of envisioning yourself in that position, and that helps out a lot in my experience. So choosing your career, now for you, what are some of the most important aspects of a job to you? So like, what are some factors you think about when pursuing your dream job or pursuing your perfect grad school?
Definitely, kind of like what everyone says, and kind of cliche, but doing something that you love. You're going to be doing this for a long time, and for long hours.
Yeah.
So you want to do something that you enjoy. I guess that's my take on finding out what job I want to pursue, or certain aspects of that.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people really value the culture, or especially people, business majors, my experience. A lot of people value culture. People want to, love waking up every day and going to the office and loving like the people they work with, and the work they do, how they're treated. So culture is definitely very important. But here's a list of kind of the important considerations to have in pursuing jobs. So, primary responsibilities. So I think that's what goes back to what you said. Doing what you love. Will your skills align with this job? Can you see yourself doing this for a prolonged time? Just stuff like that. Making sure that your main responsibilities in the job is what you actually want to do when you get that job. Location. I know a lot of people want to work in like New York City, Manhattan, or Austin, Texas. I know that's big for a lot of young professionals. Silicon Valley, a lot of tech people also want to work there. Atlanta, Georgia. Personally, I want to work in Atlanta just to stay close to family and whatnot. Intellectual challenge. Is this job always challenging the way you think, the way you see things, on your perspective? Can you see yourself, as a lifelong learner in this position? Salary and benefits. I know a lot of people pursue jobs based on salary or have that as a factor, so that's also very important. Like I talked about earlier, company and office environment, so I think that goes back to culture and what your work environment is like. And then advancement opportunities, kind of the opportunities you have to move up the ladder, move up the ranks once you start at the said company, and how that is, what that experience that is like. I know when I was interviewing, I would often ask about that. When I start, what are the opportunities for growth and moving up the corporate ladder and stuff like that, and becoming a leader at said company. Do you have anything to say, Angel?
One thing I will say is, these points that you just said, like location, intellectual challenge, salaries, and things in that nature. I feel like a lot of us, like in the back of our minds, are thinking of those things, but it's good that you like point them out, so people can sit down and actually, identify these things whenever they're pursuing a job or career-wise.
Yes, definitely, and I completely agree. So we'll move on to some of the benefits. I think a lot of young people like us don't often think about are kind of like your health benefits and your financial benefits when you accept a job offer. And here I'm about to show you a list of some healthcare benefits and some financial benefits that I've learned in this course. Um, so just here are some terms that you'll probably see in most healthcare plans. So you have stuff like a deductible, co-insurance, out-of-pocket limits, HMOs, PCPs, PPOs, FSA. Some finance benefits include stock options, profit sharing, commission, pension plan, 401ks, and 503bs. You know, I'll be honest, I don't fully understand all of these. I don't know. At first glance, what do you think? Do you think is this like new information to you, or do you know some of this already?
No, like I've heard a lot of these terms around, but I'm like not really sure what people meant when they said them. So it's really good to look at these here.
Yeah, definitely after this podcast, we can most definitely do our research because I don't know that much. But here at UG, I actually took an insurance class, so I was able to learn about a lot of the healthcare terms found in healthcare plans. So that was kind of helpful. But just all these benefits, I think, are very intricate and complex, especially when not taken at face value when you dig deeper. But these are some benefits that you'll most definitely have to think about when accepting a job post graduation, whether it be from after getting a bachelor's degree or after getting a doctorate. I think it's just very important that you know what plan you have, and it's just these are ingrained in contemporary society. So I think it's important that we know them.
And definitely ask during the interview process about it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we can move on to calculating the cost of living. So have you ever thought about, where do you want to work, Angel? Like, is there any specific place you want to work at in the country or around the world?
Yeah, so we're from Gainesville, poultry capital of the world. I intend on becoming a poultry veterinarian. My family's there, so I can have my work there and my family there. So that's kind of how I thought about it.
Yeah, me too. Like, I definitely want to stay in Georgia. I mentioned it earlier, but for those who are looking to work in New York City or work in Los Angeles or Austin, Texas, or Tampa, Florida, there's actually some resources online you can use to see, you can compare the cost of living from the city you live in now and the city you want to live in, work in. So I'm pulling up this website called DaveRamsey.com. It's a cost of living calculator. So me and Angel will run through it. This will be Angel's first time, so I'll just show him really quick. So it's very easy. You select the city you live in. The most of the cities they have are densely populated metropolitan areas. So like, we're from Gainesville, Georgia, but we're gonna have to settle with Atlanta, Georgia, because that's the one they have. And then let's say we want to live in New York City, Manhattan, and then let's say the salary that we want to make when we get out of college is, let's say, $60,000. All right, so based on our Atlanta salary, our New York salary would have to be $147,000 in order to duplicate the standard of the cost of living, which is about 146% increase. So very expensive to live in New York, as you can imagine. So yeah, this is just a really cool tool you can use to kind of compare, to see if your salary or your projected salary would have you have similar cost of living in other places. And then you can also customize, specific housing costs, utilities, food, and stuff like that. So yeah, Manhattan is definitely expensive to live in. We can do Austin, Texas, another great city for young professionals. So based on Atlanta salary, your Austin salary would need to be $60,000 or $60,480, which is only a 1% increase. So pretty similar standard of living in Atlanta and Austin, Texas. So that's really cool resource to have. All right, the next thing we're gonna talk about is negotiation. So this is specifically for salary negotiation. Do you have any experience with that, Angel?
No, not really.
Yeah, me neither. Even though I do have a full-time job lined up, um, our salary was non-negotiable. Every new hire for that position that I got hired in, we all make the same. So my experience is very limited. But in this course, in case you do have to go through the salary negotiating phase, we're here to help. Um, Here are some do's. Here are some things you want to do when you're negotiating. You want to amplify your skills, experiences, and education. You want to compare um, your offer pay to the industry standard. You want to consider cost of living. Be confident, be bold, because you're worth it. You are. And ask about relocation expenses, vacation, sick time, alternative work hours, telecommuting, travel expenses, and your start date. So I think those are definitely great tips, especially because um, you are worth how much you think you're worth, because you're worth it. Just to help you negotiate that, just talk about your skills and why you deserve whatever salary you think you deserve, and compare that pay to the industry. Consider cost of living. Again, that tool we previously talked about is super useful for that. So some things you don't want to do. So after negotiating, do not accept an offer and continue to interview at other places. Do not burn any bridges. Do not drink heavily at lunch or dinner opportunities. Do not hold yourself back from counter offering because of fear. And that is it. So yeah, I mean, I think these are kind of self-explanatory, but I'll run through them again. So after you accept an offer, I think that's very concrete, and you don't want to be interviewing with other places just in case you get an offer or anything like that. Be professional. Don't burn any bridges. Don't drink heavily at these dinner opportunities or lunch opportunities. I think that's pretty unprofessional, and that's just a recipe for disaster. And then be confident in what you're worth and counter offer if you think you're worth more. Do you have anything to say about this, Angel?
I mean, not really. I don't really have a lot of experience with negotiating.
Yeah.
But it seems, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. So that is it for the content for today, for the questions. Do you have any input, Angel, before we end it here?
No, we pretty much covered everything, I think.
Yeah, we covered a lot of material. Guys, the interview process can be scary, but if you prepare, it's a lot easier than you think it is, especially when you're confident in yourself. Actually, Angel, I think I have one last question. Do you know what imposter syndrome is?
Imposter syndrome? I do not.
It's like it's when someone kind of doubts their own ability, and kind of they feel like they're not worth it, or they perceive themselves as not competent enough. And I think just preparing for your interviews, developing your personal brand, and that goes back to the last podcast. Just building your resume, being confident about who you are, and why you're fit for a role. I think that it's really important towards fighting against imposter syndrome, because a lot of people feel it all the time. Like people always ask themselves, or I know I do, am I good enough for this role? I got this far, but I feel like this is not me. Am I good enough? Just preparing for your interviews and doing what you can will definitely fight against that. And there are a lot of resources, like I've said in the past two podcasts, that we can all use to further our success and further our career planning. All right, Angel, any last words again before we end it here?
I guess no. I mean, like you were talking about the imposter syndrome. It's interesting. Kind of goes to what we were saying earlier. Know your worth. You've worked hard a lot.
Yeah.
And like you said, just educating yourself on these tools that they'll help you a lot. So I'm really glad that these are out there.
Yeah, definitely. So that is the end of podcast number 2. Leave any feedback you guys want in the comments, and I hope that these podcasts really help out even just one person, because it can be hard out there to kind of work towards this goal of getting into grad school or getting a full-time job. It's definitely difficult. So stay in there and prepare. And that'll be it. Thank you for listening.